We good? Perfect. Okay. Hi, I'm Maribel Lopez, and I'm here with Sanjeev. We're here to talk about scaling AI to the next level. So it is no surprise who eBay is. I need no introduction. It's also no surprise that they have been working with these technologies for a very long time. And a lot has changed over the journey of eBay and what they've been doing with technology. So Sanjeev, I thought we might start with just giving people a sense of what is your AI framework today. We don't have a slide on it, but maybe you could just talk us through how you look at it, what the components are.
Absolutely. So let me start by breaking it up into three basic pillars. The first pillar has to do with identifying the business problems clearly, because if you don't know what business problem you're out to solve, you're probably going to pick the wrong set of technologies and the wrong set of skill sets. The second one is finding the right people, providing them with the right training, with the right education. And then the third one has to do with the technological set and architecting it properly. So as I'm also the VP, I'm also the chief architect of eBay. And in doing so, you have to fundamentally construct something that layers the architecture of AI properly. Otherwise, after many years of spending time, money, and effort, you will wind up with a very chaotic environment for artificial intelligence and machine learning. And in doing so, as a very simple framework for us, it's a fundamental layer, and we call it the AI platforms into which data exists. And the second layer above that is a very clean layer that has to do with common AI and machine learning models. Take examples of computer vision, natural language processing, machine translation, recommender systems, so on and so forth. And then the final one is very specific around domain sciences. So if you're a seller, there's selling science that gets activated. If you're a buyer, there's buying sciences. If it's search science. So when you layer yourself properly, you can then scale to the needs of the business. And eBay, being a very global business, we're in 190 markets. We have, a huge inventory of listings, over 1.2 billion listings coming from all over the place, and a business that grows at a global scale. And in order to do this, we have to deal with federated teams. Our scientists are all over the planet, and providing a collaborative environment to work in this framework according to the architecture. So these three combinations, starting with business, people, and then the technological architectural stack, makes for the ability to scale as times evolve.
Okay, so I want to take each of these sort of in turn. If we start with the business, are you solving different business problems today than you had in the past?
Absolutely. I mean, part of evolution of e-commerce is around growing to the needs of the business. One of the programs that folks must have heard about is our Retail Revival program. It's a program that says, basically, we want to make sure that businesses around the world, as e-commerce has come of age, also small mom-and-pop stores get a chance to play. How does eBay do that? It democratizes AI. The person who is a small business owner can open up a store on eBay, put their wares on eBay, and have that artificial intelligence made available to them so that they too can prosper globally. So that's a working example of us actually evolving our system so that we can enable retail revival. On a daily basis, we know that modalities are changing. We know that as we go into the future, vision is becoming central. As you have a global market, we have machine translation, which becomes central. So as we expand our global business, we have to provide for these evolving technologies. So that's another investment area. As the business changes, we too change, and with the technologies and the people too.
So let's circle back into, you talked about the technology platform, and you talked about the three strata that you have within the technology platform. Did you create those strata so that you could scale each of them individually, or what was the thought process that led you to that construct?
Absolutely, great question. So there's a combination. We want to enable innovation. We want, at all points in time in our industry, to enable people who come up with great ideas. In the same note, we also want to bring the sum total of these ideas to come to bear on the business. So the architectural layering that was constructed was constructed in a fashion so as to enable that both evolutionary behavior and also consolidated and aggregated behavior. Now, this is very important for our industry to know, that you have to coordinate properly if you want the sum of all these individual parts to be greater, while enabling innovation. So the architectural layers give our company the capability to both innovate at the speed of light, and we have another forum that we put into place that brings this all together. And I'm going to speak a little bit about the people angle. So being also the chief architect of eBay, I run a virtual architecture team. What is this virtual architecture team? It's a global technological team made up with our best minds, our best engineers, our best scientists. They sit down and they have discussions with global technological leaders, with leaders in specific scientific spaces, and they make sure that we are always talking to each other, we're always collaborating with each other, we're transparent about what we're doing, we are open about what we're doing, and this exchange leads to a very powerful environment. This in addition to providing all the tools, technologies, and platforms that are needed, but the essential part is to also enable these people to work consolidated. There's another part that we run within this virtual architecture team that is a fellowship program. Everybody wants training. Everybody wants to learn these new skills. Nobody should be left behind. And that's the kind of a program that we run globally so that everybody can engage.
So let me ask you a question about that, because this whole concept of upskilling and reskilling individuals, do you leave a certain part of their day job to do that? Like, how do they integrate that? Is that something they do in the weekends? Is it something that's put into their HR plans as growth opportunities? How do you make that happen?
So it's a great question. We actually figured out a mechanism to make it part of their day jobs. And the way we've arranged this is, let's say there's a certain project that the company is working on. It just so happens to be that if a couple of minds came together, they would both contribute to that project, but also learn from that project and take it back. So we do it as, and I'm sure a whole majority of us are already agile. Part of the agile sprint planning process is people engage. You know, the team will come together and say, I volunteer a couple of people who will go help that particular project and learn that skill set. So both the product advances, in addition to them both learning the skill sets, and they bring that back to their home teams. And with that, we have seen immense acceleration. It's amazing how we've been able to globally achieve this with a program of this nature, and it's scaled really well.
That makes a lot of sense. So one of the things that we are hearing quite a bit in the conference from sort of what I would call the AI pioneers is that if you were early, you built a lot of your own things, and there's been this build versus buy. We just heard it a few minutes ago. I know that you actually built your own servers at one point in time. So tell me, would you continue to do that? Are there things that you still feel that you need to build yourself? What do you consider the state of the AI technology that's out there?
Absolutely, another great question. So we at eBay have a combination of both. Again, I'll speak to the scale. We are a mega scale platform. And in doing so, I mean, just to give you guys an idea, there is about 500 petabytes worth of information that goes through our data analytics channels. Over 300 billion data queries flow through our systems. So when you reach that kind of operational scale, you know what your flows are. You know what your total cost of operations is going to be. And you really have to figure out mechanics to optimize that. Hence the construct of our ODM, our hardware that we construct, that truly optimizes it for the transactions that are defined by eBay. But like I said, we're also open to experimentation. In as much as we have hardware that is dedicated for well-known workflows, which we have optimized really well, we also look to innovative side. So we're inclusive in our complete plan. We don't say A or B, we go A and B. And working examples are we work with various companies to incorporate new hardware innovations, new software innovations, but we don't stop over there. You know, the planet today has a great working system called open source. And we leverage open source heavily, and we contribute back to open source. So that adds to the total mixture of how we can evolve faster, but also contribute back to the community. So it's a combination of all of these things.
Yeah, in that combination, some of the things we've been talking about, I was talking to, I interviewed Walmart earlier, and we were talking about open source and NVIDIA and GPUs, and it strikes me that there's a lot of different types of processing technology out there and a lot of different frameworks. What's your perspective? Do you use one of them, all of them, none of them? How do you think about that?
We love them all. We truly love them all. We love CPUs.
eBay Hearts technology.
We
You heard it here
love
first.
GPUs. We love FPGAs. Literally. So the fundamental thing I think we need to understand is that AI is evolving at an extremely rapid rate. The workloads are evolving, the science is evolving, the education is evolving. And there are many advances, especially as the algorithms improve. Let's take the case of deep learning as a whole, or reinforcement learning. As feed-forward networks or recurrent networks evolve, they put greater demands. As the data lakes grow, they put greater demands. Distributed training kicks in. Various things like GPUs help with this. FPGAs help with this. They help with data analytics. So we love that kind of hardware, which will help us, once again, achieve the kind of scale that eBay operates at. In the same note, we love evolution. There's different things that are happening out there, and we will absorb them as is needed. So that's why I say when I take a look at the eBay architecture and the way I've constructed it, is we support both, because we need both. I was listening to the previous panel, and they had mentioned, the buy versus build thing. One of the fundamental constructs in all of this is, as you innovate, one team might innovate, and then you find two teams doing the same thing, and then three teams doing the same thing, at which point in time you make an intelligent decision and say, maybe this should turn into a platform, and this should be part of the core platform offering. And that's the kind of innovation we need to support.
Yeah, this concept of a platform is actually really interesting because I think we talk to a lot of cloud computing companies now, and they're all trying to build the platform for you to do AI. And you've been pretty much building your own platform to do AI. Do you see any intersection there or overlap or utilization of both? Or how do you think about the cloud as a role in your AI offerings?
I'm going to take an example where, as evolution happens, as technologies come to bear, Google comes up with a TPU, or Microsoft might come up with a different FPGA offering. We want to be able to try out different algorithms. There was a recent algorithm that was called BERT in natural language processing that was activated, and Google offers that, and you can checkpoint it, and you can download it and run it in your own systems. So we want to be able to take advantage of these situations, and we want to be able to leverage these technologies, and then also as we build our own. So it's a combination. We don't isolate anything, and the same note, we make intelligent decisions where if something is going to be one of our core offerings, we want to make sure that it is cost optimized for us. And in the same note, we also want to enhance developer productivity. So it's a good balance that we always kind of sort of walk this line and making sure that, the engineers, the scientists are enabled, they can develop at the speed of the business and the demands of the business while we make sure that our cost of operations don't skyrocket.
So that's actually an interesting point. Is there something that you tried that didn't work and you'd say don't do that? Or is it just evolving so quickly that every year is its own special journey?
Yeah, I think, especially as I look back, it's more of an evolution, try something. Sometimes it's met with errors that you make because you just maybe the frameworks didn't exist, maybe the software didn't exist. I'd turn to any company. I spent a reasonable amount of time in Microsoft and then also worked at LinkedIn. We all have tech debt. It is a standard construct where, we'll create a technology and then we'll create another technology, and then the older technology is left behind. So you have to kind of sort of find also that balance of bringing the old into the new. And so I think that's just a constant battle that we have, and it's a good battle. We make mistakes, but we learn from those mistakes and we evolve, just like any part of our industry.
Is there a piece of advice that you would give the audience, given that you're a company that runs at massive scale and you've tried many different things in AI? What advice would you leave the audience with?
So, as the chief architect of eBay, I'd say this: keep your solutions focused and simple. Please index towards simplicity. You know, I'm an engineer, I'm a scientist, and I love things, you know, as they get a little bit more complicated. But you quickly realize the business has certain demands. Nobody is asking for 100% accuracy in the systems that you do, or the output that you produce. So really examine this in a comprehensive fashion. What problem are you trying to solve? What is the simplest solution? You know, use Occam's razor for, you know, for many different solutions. Sometimes the simplest is probably the right explanation. And then advance from there. Do not go for the overcomplicated at the very start. It never works out in the long run. So simplicity, I think, is a key architectural concept, and it transcends technological boundaries, including artificial intelligence and machine learning.
I'm going to ask another question, and then I'm going to go to the audience for questions. So if you have a question, tee it up now. So some of the things that we have been talking about with vision and natural language processing, you know, these aren't new concepts. I guess my question to you is, what's different or better about it now?
Yeah, great question. What has happened is that compute has grown. Data management has grown. Our ability to build data quality frameworks and harvest large amounts of data, ontologically arranged data, systems have come of age. Hardware has evolved, and open source has evolved. Education has evolved. I mean, I'd look to the audience and say, how many people have taken Coursera or EDX? A variety of different things exist out there. I think the collection of all of this brought to bear a collaborative, planet-wide environment whereby natural language technologies could be taken to the next level. They could be run on high compute systems. And infrastructure now supports that kind of scale. So what happens at every stage, and this happened also with eBay, is when you hit a certain scale level, the next barrier to getting to the next scale level is a pretty hard one. And we crossed over that one. And so that's why deep learning, as an example, has taken off like a rocket and getting used in many different applications nowadays. And it's because the hardware, the software, the people, and the skill sets all came together. It's kind of like a point of singularity in many different ways.
And this gets back to what you'd said to me at one point earlier, that algorithms are getting better. And I asked you if that was just because they were run faster that they got better, and you said no, it was more than that.
Yeah, if I take a look at so I've been at this for about 20, 25 years or so. If I take a look at the algorithms that I used to work with and what's being used today, they are just radically different. Things have drastically evolved. I take a look at deep neural nets as a working example. You know, the fact that we have activation functions and we have various kinds of layers that we attach to them, that's amazing. And I don't consider that to stop. We are going to continue to evolve, and we still have several problems to solve in artificial intelligence and machine learning. I think the times ahead of us are just simply exciting.
Is there a question in the audience? Yes, there's one right there.
What was the first AI solution that you guys did for eBay?
So it's a human intelligence thing. So it's a great question. And I'm going to say it was a hard-coded intelligence. You know, when we sold that broken laser pointer, Pierre hard-coded artificial intelligence in the form of if-then-else statements. And it basically said, how am I going to bind the seller to the buyer at a good auction price? And then became, you know, entire science has grown out of auction and gaming theory, out of that simple thing that says, you know, people are going to make a bid. How are you going to balance that one out? But back in those days, it wasn't a data inferential technique. We used to code up these solutions. And over time, we've turned it into a data inferential technique.
Another question? Okay, I have a question. Big discussion around AI and explainability. How does that work in eBay? Is that an issue for you? And if so, how are you addressing it?
So we take this very seriously, and we have for a very long period of time. When your money flows through our system, when your interest flows through our system, we ensure that we are going to make things as transparent as is possible. So as part of my architectural charter, as part of my AI charter, we continue to invest in AI accountability. We continue to invest in privacy, and you can go to our website and check that out. We run things through our A/B platforms. Those are our experimental platforms where we look for data diversity, we look for interaction diversity. We ensure in many different ways we can within our own systems turn to certain monitoring things that we do where we can explain why a neural net is evolving the way that it is. And again, this is an area for research for a whole bunch of us. And we continue, the core point being is that we continue to invest in these. And I think, for the years to come, we will continue to get better at this. So, but it is a core area for us.
Final question. What's the most exciting AI technology or research project or thing that you're seeing in the marketplace today?
So I'm a firm believer that we have yet to achieve the power that we had stated back in my younger days, and that has to do with multimodality. When I interact with another human, I visualize, I talk, I have other sensory things that I bring into bear, and I think computers have yet to achieve that level of incorporating all various modalities to produce a comprehensive immersive experience. So I look to that future as an area, it's an exciting area, and how we're going to really truly make these computers interact as we interact with each other. But I wouldn't stop there. There's another area that is fascinating for me as I take a look at evolution is, there's so much to be done in AI. If anybody thinks we're done, we're not. This is the beginning stages. Neural nets have come of age because of computing and a variety of other things that I talked about. But we still need to work towards simplification of neural networks. We have not solved the neural plasticity problem, which says, how does a structural neural network work, really? We still need to investigate technologies like AutoML, where the machine learning, instead of written by humans, can be self-taught and learned in conjunction with humans, not by itself, but in conjunction. So I think the area is replete. So I'm excited about a whole bunch of things on that.
Excellent. All right, well, with that, if there are any final questions or? No? Okay, with that, we're going to close up. Thank you,
Great,
Sanjeev.
thank you very much. All right, thank you.